Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to learn how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine using VirtualBox on our computers. So I'm going to tell the rest of the course from Mac because right now, from this point on, it will be the exact same points whether you have Mac or Windows. It really doesn't matter. And don't worry about these virtual machines in here. Of course, you don't have them in your machine right now. Since this is my main computer, I have them, and you will have them when you complete this lecture and the following lecture later on. So, next step would be for us to download Kali Linux from internet and install it on our VirtualBox. In order to do that, open a browser. I'm going to open Safari from Mac. You can open whatever you want from Windows as well. All you have to do is just Google download Kali Linux VirtualBox. Okay, download Kali Linux VirtualBox and hit enter. It will take you to a website called offensivesecurity.com. If you click on it, it will take you through the Offensive Security download page. So Kali Linux is a distribution of a Linux operating system, and it contains penetration testing, ethical hacking tools inside. So this will be a complete operating system where we conduct our penetration system tests, and when we do all the attacks, when we simulate all the attacks inside within. So Kali Linux is brought by Offensive Security. So we are going to download it from offensivesecurity.com. So if you scroll down, you will see VMware images and VirtualBox images. And as you might guess, we are now interested with VirtualBox images. By the way, this look of this website may change in time, but it doesn't matter. All you have to do is just go to the download section, download page, and look for VirtualBox images. So within here, we have two options, whether 64-bit or 32-bit. It depends on your own host machine. So if you're on a 30-bit computer, you may download this one. And you're on a 64 computer, you have to download this one. So if you're using torrent on your own computer, you may choose to download it via torrent, but you may just click on this and it will just start to download it for you. It will download an OVA file, okay? The extension is OVA. And this is 4 gigabytes. In order not to make you wait, I have already downloaded it before because it may take like 30-40 minutes depending on your internet connection. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to use the one that I have downloaded before. And remember, you have to find the VirtualBox images, not the VMware images. Of course, if you're using VMware for some reason, then you might want to download VMware image as well. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open my VirtualBox. So where I have downloaded mine in downloads folder. So this is the one that I have canceled. So let me move this to trash, and it is inside my virtual machines folder. So choose a place for your download because you may not want to change this later on. So choose your place carefully, place it under downloads, place it under documents, because if you move them later on, it will be problematic for you because you will have to just do some extra settings in order to make this properly work. Okay, so choose a place right now, and then there are two options to install this. First, you may want to go to the downloaded file, okay, where you placed it, and double click on this OVA file. If you double click on this, it will pop open this window for you. But again, sometimes it doesn't pop up. So I'm going to show you how to manually do that, okay? You have to go to your settings. In Windows, you can see it in here saying import. In Mac, you can go to the menu from file and say import appliance. And you can say import appliance from Windows menu as well. So we are trying to import the device that we have downloaded. All we have to do is just select that OVA file from this folder here. So click on this and find the downloaded file, okay, and select it. and then you may say continue. Once you do that, it will give you some default values in here. Don't worry, we can change them later on. So I'm going to say import, and it will try to install and import everything for me. It will take a couple of minutes, so feel free to pause the video and come back after it's done. Once it's installed, it will add it to the list. So this is the one that I have currently installed. Okay, if you click on this, if you go to settings from here, you may access the settings of the virtual machine. Now we are not in the settings, we are not in the preferences of VirtualBox. We are inside the settings of this Kali Linux machine, okay? So let me tell you what we can change. As you can see, we can change the name from here, okay? I'm going to just use this default one. And if it's not Linux and Debian 64-bit, you have to choose it. Of course, if you're in a 32-bit machine, and if you have downloaded the 32-bit image, it will look like 32-bit here and it's okay. But if you're on a 64-bit machine, and if it says 32-bit here, then it won't work. You have to choose Linux from here and Debian 64-bit from here. Now, sometimes, even though you're on a 64-bit machine, and even though you have downloaded the 64-bit image, it doesn't show up here, even though you choose the list, okay? It doesn't show up on the drop-down list. And the reason for that, you may need to enable virtualization on your computer. So there is something called virtualization technology, and it enables us to run these virtual machines. So sometimes it comes turned off on your system. And it isn't clear for everyone how to turn on, because in every operating system, in every processor, it has some different instructions. Best way to do that is to just get your operating system and processor name, okay? Suppose that you're on an Intel machine, E7, okay? Then you have to go to Google, like this, and say how to enable virtualization in Windows 10 Intel 7, for instance, E7. If you Google it, you will have so many results, you will have so many tutorials telling you how to enable virtualization. I'm not going to show you how to do that because it may need to go to BIOS settings and you have to turn your computer off and on in order to do that. So I cannot properly record that, but it is fairly easy to do. And all you have to do is just Google this and find out how to enable virtualization. And most of the time, you won't have to do that, okay? I'm telling you just in case you get any error regarding virtualization, or just in case the 64-bit doesn't pop up in here. So this was the most important setting. Then, let's go to the system. And in system, you have to choose what kind of RAM you want to allocate to the virtual machine. As you can see, I have an 8 GB RAM in my computer. And it suggests me to allocate 2 GB of RAM. So you have to optimize this thing, because if you give too low, okay, like this, 4 MB, it won't open. And if you give too much, then there should be nothing left on your own computer, then it won't open again. So I suggest you start something like 1 GB. It's like 1024 megabytes. And Kali Linux actually runs good on 1 GB of RAM. If you have 8 GB, you may choose to give it 2 GB as well. But if you have less, like 4 GB, you cannot give more than 1. Because later on in this course, within following sections, we're going to use Windows and Kali Linux at the same time. So I'm going to leave this in 1 GB. Later on, let's go to the display where we can see the video memory, and it's better to leave this as suggested as default value, okay? If you go to storage, you can see the OVA file that you have imported from here. If you go to network, then here you have to choose the network that you created previously. As you can see now, this is attached to NAT. I have to select NAT network, and from here I have to select that NAT network that I have created before. Later on in this course, we will see the other options like bridge adapter. We will use this bridge adapter when we use USB Wi-Fi cards within our systems. But for right now, I'm going to choose NAT network. From here, you may want to add some USB devices to your Kali Linux machine, and we are going to do that later on in this course as well. When we deal with USB Wi-Fi cards, we're going to use this USB section. But before you go and start the Kali Linux, make sure you select NAT network, make sure you just adjust this RAM, and in here in the System tab, there is also something called Processor. In here you may choose how many processors you want to allocate to this virtual machine as well. And Kali Linux runs on one CPU efficiently. Kali Linux is actually a very efficient system. So you can click OK after you do these kinds of settings, and you can go here and say Start. It will open a new window for you where it will just run the Kali Linux. You have to wait until it's running here. So you may want to minimize this, or you may want to maximize this window as well. It doesn't matter. I suggest you wait until it's opened, then you maximize. And it will take a couple of minutes, especially if it's the first time you're running this. As you can see now, it asks for a username. So let me make this into a full screen so we can see it better. Once you see that screen in here, you have to give root as username. And before we go on, the password in the next section will be tour, okay? The exact opposite of root. So I'm going to give root as username, and I'm going to give tour as password and hit enter. So this will be our default account when we use Kali Linux, and we're going to see how to change the password later on. As you can see, this is now Kali Linux. This is going to be our main operating system when we deal within this course, and we're going to see how to use this Linux, how to use this Kali Linux in the next section. But for right now, you're okay if you manage to run this Kali Linux. You may want to close it down. All you have to do is just click the closing sign in here, and you can say save the machine state. It means that don't turn off. Whenever I click start, just pop this on. You may want to say power off the machine as well. It will just turn off the machine for you, and you may want to go to your virtual machine and hit start to start it again. So if you come to this point, let's stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to do the same thing for Windows.